What's going on, everybody? My name is Stefan Coons, and I'm the CEO of Pursuit Health and Performance. Welcome to the Pursuit Health and Performance podcast. And today we have on a special guest. We have Coach Mike on here with us. Say what's up.
What is up?
What's up? So if you don't know who Coach Mike is, he's one of the coaches at Pursuit. He does coach online, but he also coaches in person in Gilbert, Arizona. If you're not too familiar with who we are a premium online coaching service. So we help our clients with fitness, nutrition, training, mindset, scheduling, rehab. Basically, if you want to be fit or more fit in any other way or have any fitness goal, that's what we help you with. Okay. So also you can check us out. A little more info on us at www.pursuithp.com. You can even fill out a form to chat with a coach and kind of figure out a game plan to get you fit. But I do want to talk to you about what we're going to chat about today, and that's strength versus hypertrophy. So I'm going to break down kind of what those are if you're not too familiar, and then we'll dive into it. So strength is, there's all types of strength, right? Like relative strength and stuff like that. But basically strength is, how strong you are, how much can you lift? And then hypertrophy is honestly what probably a lot of you guys are doing. And that's mostly lifting to get bigger. Now with hypertrophy, depending on, hypertrophy really just means growth, right?
Yeah.
The actual definition.
Muscle building.
Yeah. So muscle building, basically. So with hypertrophy, that's generally what most people care about, but we're going to dive into the nuances for both of them and kind of a little bit of the science. And by the end of this episode, you'll understand if your program is helping you do what you're actually wanting to accomplish. Because you might not know. You might, I do a 5x5 or I do 4x12s, or, I go to a CrossFit and they have me do a WOD. And if you know rep ranges and why you're doing it, you're going to be able to assess your program, and you're going to be able to assess your body physically to know what you can do, right? Because if I go into and what you can't do. Like I went to the gym today and I was pretty tired. I've had probably too much caffeine. I'm kind of crashed before we did this episode. And I had one pretty heavy lift. It was in the hypertrophy range, like 4 sets of 10 to 12, but this wouldn't have been a day where I felt like maxing out for a lot of specific reasons. But it is beneficial to lift heavy, even if you're just trying to gain muscle. And they're actually like the opposite. But before we dive into too deep, I do want to ask a favor. If you guys can like, comment, subscribe on this podcast, that do us a huge favor. We grow by word of mouth. We don't run ads. So that would mean the world to us. And then if you feel like this episode's worth it, we would really appreciate a 5-star review. But I'm going to let Coach Mike kind of talk about the differences between strength and hypertrophy, and if you need both and why you need both. So shoot.
Yeah. So a lot of people don't even know that there's a difference between strength and hypertrophy. People assume that they go to the gym, they machine hop or whatever, they do dumbbells, do whatever they're used to doing at the gym, and they notice some strength gains. So they're like, oh, well, last year I did 15-pound dumbbells and now I'm doing 20s. Yes, you can absolutely get stronger with hypertrophy, and it's needed for some mechanical advantages to strength. Obviously, a guy that's got bigger muscles has more potential for strength than somebody who's skinny like a twig. But it's not always like that, because that's the same reason why you could have a really skinny power lifter that's putting up numbers and twice as strong as some guys bigger than him. It's because that guy was strength training as opposed to muscle building. Now, me and Stefan, we do both. We do everything. We believe in having a balanced body. We work maximum strength. We work relative strength. We work athletic performance, so strength, speed strength, power training, speed training, explosive strength. There's tons of types of strengths, but unfortunately most people are doing bodybuilding, whether they know it or not. So they go to a gym, they go today's chest and tris or whatever, chest and back, whatever the thing is. They might do a couple compound lifts, not too heavy, and then they go and they do their accessory, or they just go and do machines. I did 10, 5 sets of 10, stuff like that. That's a remnant from bodybuilding. These machines were used for bodybuilding back in the day. If somebody said, hey, my biceps were small, they figured out a way to use pulleys or some sort of cam to hypertrophy or isolate the bicep to make them bigger. That's great, but the body doesn't move in single joint movements. It moves in compound movements. So if you only do one thing and you ignore the other, you're going to be lacking.
Yeah, and I think at least for me, my first years of lifting, and I wish that I could post up pictures. Maybe I'll do it if this goes on YouTube or something. But I was bigger than I was right now, 100%. I was pretty stacked in the Air Force. I think my lower body was definitely lacking. I probably wouldn't be wearing shorts like this. But I didn't have like toothpick legs. I was an athlete, but I didn't know what I was doing. You know what I was doing? I'll tell you what I was doing. I took weight training in high school, and my coach told me to do 4 sets of 8 basically on everything. And that's what I did for 8 years. I'm not even lying. And you might laugh and be like, wow, that's ridiculous. Do you know how many 40 or 50-year-olds that I talk to that come on our program or I've had consultations with that say, I kind of been doing the same thing since high school?
Yeah.
Dude, 20 years, right? And the thing is, if you're smart about it, you can kind of keep making some gains, but after a few years, you basically hit a plateau. And maybe for you, you're like, hey, I
never hit a plateau.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you're not getting your maximum, you're not efficient with your time.
Right.
It took me 10 years. I put on 30 pounds on my bench.
And usually what happens, we'll break it down from a physique and performance. You probably care about the physique more, so we'll break it down for the physique. I should have got my coffee. For the physique and performance. So for physique, I strongly believe if you are consistent, I'm talking about 4 to 5 days a week, every week. If you do that, from day 0 of lifting, brand spanking new, to year 4 or 5, you're basically going to one day hit a huge brick wall plateau and your body will basically not change anymore if you don't use performance enhancing drugs. It can, but it's very small. I'm talking about a 3 to 5% gain per year if you're lifting your ass off. Okay. My body kind of looks the same as it did 5 years ago. Just saying. I'm not that there's no change to it, but it doesn't mean I'm lifting less. It doesn't mean I'm lifting any harder, but your body kind of hits hey, this is all I'm going to do physically. And yes, you can still keep lifting more and harder and higher volume, but life happens. I did that and I had a back injury, or I had an old, really bad knee injury from MMA, which limits me. I can only lift so heavy or so often or so much volume. So, if you guys think that strength, I'm going to kind of tie this into performance. If you think that I don't care about numbers, I just care about looking good. I'm kind of actually in that boat, but let me tell you, the longer I lift, I realize that a lot of them actually are correlated. Not that you need to squat a lot or bench a lot to have a really nice chest. Because when I did my photo shoot and did fitness modeling and was on a cover of a magazine, I wasn't putting up the best numbers. So I will say that they're not a causation, but there is some correlation. Mm-hmm. But however, you're not going to break past those physical, how you look plateaus without getting stronger. Probably not. And then do you really want to go to the gym for 10, 15, 20 years doing the same thing and not making progress? It's boring as shit. Okay. I've been lifting in the gym for 15 years. How long have you been lifting?
14 years.
Yeah. 14, 15 years, basically since we were 15 years old,
yeah.
right? Our entire, I'm about to be 32. So my entire adult life I honestly don't think I've taken more than a week off unless I was sick basically the entire time.
And I started with bodybuilding.
Yeah. Right. And we started probably you guys started just regularly doing pull-ups and stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually do more of a functional bodybuilding. So I do still bodybuilding, isolation movements. There's nothing wrong with it. I still do 4 sets of 12 on stuff. I still do hypertrophy. But if you're never incorporating strength stuff, you're going to hit a plateau. And this is in the form of 2 things. Number 1, you're going to be oh, I've been going to the gym for a year and my body really hasn't changed all year. That's not, I would be a little upset. Yeah, I would expect some change. Now, if your diet's crap but if you're no, I've been eating clean. I've been actually trying to make progress for a year and I basically haven't. And you know what happens to those guys? They end up getting on TRT and doing performance enhancing drugs because they're this is BS. I'm putting in the work and I'm not getting results. If they would have just changed their training style, obviously if you take steroids, you're going to look better. Don't do that though. But if
you might die though.
Yeah, you might die though. And your heart explode. So, but if you don't, if you're like most of us that aren't on D-ball and Shred and Winstrol and testosterone and all these other crazy things, you have to eventually increase your performance in order to do more hypertrophy and get stronger and bigger. So for example, if I can squat 4 sets of 12 at 250 pounds, let's just say and I'm talking that's a 9 out of 10 RPE. It's very challenging for me. I could keep doing that. Eventually my body, and you could do periodization. If you guys don't know what that means, it's you do, hypertrophy to strength, all that. But most of you don't, right? Most of you guys are not following an actual structured periodized or conjugate program. He does a lot of conjugate lifting. Like you're not actually following a program. So you've been doing the 4 sets of 12 or 4 sets of 10 or 5x5 for a while. Maybe you switch it up a little bit, but what's your strength increase? Do you even write your numbers down or do you just go to the gym, right? And so are you actually tracking and using science? Probably not.
And is one thing going up and then without you knowing, other things are going down?
Yeah. So if you're like, well, I want my bench to go up, so I'm not going to squat as much, I'm going to do bench. Well, now your squat's going down. You know, and maybe if you have a super underdeveloped chest or a weak bench, that's, necessary to change a little bit. But I think for most of you guys, you need to track a little more. And this is what strength, I'll just tell you a personal story for me and also what we do with our clients. For me, I was stuck on my squat for a very long time. I'm not a strong squatter. It's, I had a really, really strong bench, like 165 pounds, benching 335 for a 1 rep max is really good. Deadlifting almost 500, like we're really good. My squat was like maybe 315, like terrible, like way off, right? Like you don't laugh at that, but I just didn't. I never squatted. This was like way back in the Air Force. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to actually squat. Guess what? I did. And I was like, I'm going to squat. This is very high volume. Don't do this. I did 5 sets of 10 on Mondays and Thursdays. So I did 5 sets of 10 on front squats, back squats, walking lunges, like 10 each leg. So 5 sets of 20, basically German volume training, seated calf raises, standing calf raises, leg extensions, abductions, and adductions. That's a lot of stuff. And sometimes I'd burn out on like goblet squat. Like it's just, that's like everything. Oh, and maybe leg press. Like I did as much legs as I could twice a week, and they got very big and they got very strong. And then I blew out my disc. And that's what happens because you're not, and I see it all the time with guys that just go in the gym. You know what I'm talking about. The big dudes that are like in their mid 30s and they have a really big upper body and they bench and they can bench a lot. Dude, I guarantee you those guys have shoulder impingement.
Yeah, can't lift their arm higher than here.
Yeah, torn little rotator cuffs. I see them. The in between sets are like massaging their tennis elbow and their shoulders, and they just keep benching and benching. And that's the thing is if you're weak and you're like, he's not weak, he's repping out 315. He's weak at his joint or his joint wouldn't have pain. And I know because I have shoulder issues. So if you're never getting stronger, you're always using the same range of motion, you're doing the same repetitive thing, eventually you won't look as good. Why? Well, because you're going to get injured, probably, right? Or just from wear and tear and doing the same range of motion. And guess what? It's really hard to train properly and to look good when you're injured. Imagine blowing out your knee. Do you think how fast would you get fat? If you can't run or jog or bike or, squat or do anything, like probably pretty fast for most people. So, that's why I think strength is important for me. I know Mike's way stronger than me and has way bigger lifts, but he hasn't been, how long has it been since you've been injured? You said you haven't been injured in the last 4 years, right?
Probably
like actually
longer
injured.
than that. I've done dumb things that have gotten me like slightly hurt, but the difference is you can't totally prevent injury 100%.
Yeah,
you
no,
can
no,
bulletproof your body, and then something out of your control can happen to you. But the thing is, my injuries will last 3 days, maybe 2 weeks if it's really bad, and then I don't like, I'm gonna just take 2 weeks off. No, felt something weird in my back the other day. Cool, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna hammer back and just pump up that area with bands and just do as much like instant prehab and rehab at the same time, and then your body, like your nervous system and everything's like, we're good, we're fine. And then you heal, especially if your diet's on point, and you're not under eating protein or like under eating fats, and you just repair. And then and when you stop caring about injuries, they start becoming less and less and less. And then your body, you just go, that little tiny thing in the shoulder, that'll be gone next week. And that confidence turns into reality. Your body just becomes really efficient at fixing these little tiny things as opposed to you being out for decades.
Yeah.
So,
And that is true. You might be like, that's just like fluff. No, that is true.
No, it's
you have
100% true.
Your mind's very, very powerful. And what he's saying about going in the gym, like, why would you hammer back if you tweak your back? What he's saying is like not going and like doing deadlifts and 4 sets of 12.
Maxing out when you're hurt.
Yeah, he's saying like he's getting blood in the area since blood is, you want inflammation, you want swelling. That's why when you fracture your arm, it swells up. That's your body saying we need to heal now, right? That's like that instantaneous getting all the blood and the nutrients there. So he's like kind of simulating that, right?
Yeah. I'm not saying if you broke your arm, go do like tricep extensions, right? Or something like that. But, if you feel some sort of like soft tissue thing, you're like, it's a little weird, right? Instead of immediately going and foam rolling and massaging and doing all these passive modalities that are someone working the tissue, whatever, like if the area is injured, it needs to be re-strengthened or re-stabilized, right? If you like felt your shoulder go out, like you don't just ignore shoulder and assume it's going to just go back into place and be fine. You need to stabilize it. You need to teach your brain that I'm okay. That injury wasn't as bad as I think it is, unless it is.
Yeah. Right. And listen, this is super important. If you're going to take any advice from me, right? Somebody that's been lifting for 15 years, training for 10, done all the things in the industry, please have a well-rounded program, because I didn't, and I'm still working on being better at it. But the problem is, right now, if I said I had no little bumps or bruises or injuries, which I do, by the way, my shoulders have been bugging me. And when you, like you said, you can't avoid every injury when you train hard. Like I used to do martial arts and wrestling and like I was lifting hard in the gym for all those times. You might not, if you're lucky, if you haven't had a serious injury. Unfortunately, I've had a few. But like beyond that, I have little bumps and bruises. But this is how to avoid it, because this is what will happen. You're like, dude, I'm fine. I don't have any injuries. Okay, I'll wait. I will wait. And the thing is, it's just anatomy. Like if you're actually lifting hard, okay, not like 50% in the gym and you just go and mess around and just do some random shit. Like I'm talking about actual structured hard lifting to build your body. You're tearing down your tissue. You're stressing your ligaments and your joints. And guess what? To get stronger, your body actually grows back tighter, and some of the muscle fibers grow back shorter. So that's why you become less flexible as you get bigger. And if you're just neglecting your mobility and your flexibility and your strength, you will eventually hit a wall. And it's in different ways, but for me, it's injuries. Every time I go in, I'm like, I'm just going to do like higher volume. Like right now, I'm doing a 3-day split 2 times a week, very high volume, more of a bodybuilding style. And what do you know? Like 4 weeks in, my shoulder started to hurt, right? And I'm not saying that maybe wouldn't have happened if I didn't do that, but it seems like every time that I don't have enough variety, like I don't have strength and I'm like, don't have as much mobility, and I don't have any flexibility, or I'm neglecting it because I want to get bigger and stronger, I end up getting hurt. And then I have to take time off of lifting, right? Like now I'm like, oh, I have to take a couple weeks off my chest. I might have not even got to that point if I would have just prioritized strength.
Yeah. And I run a conjugate program, which is pretty much 2 days a week. You're doing, I'm not going to call them heavy days, but you're doing some max effort work where the weight is moving slow, because it's the most weight you could lift for 1 rep, right? I hit 1 rep maxes. And on other days I work speed work. So I try to cover both ends. And then my hypertrophy is every day. And then I have like micro workouts, and I do pretty much everything. Gymnastics, I hit pads, I used to fight professionally. Like I have the ultimate do it all programming, and everything just keeps going up and up. And that's the beauty of conjugate. But the issue with doing, like you were saying, 4x8s and 4x10s is your absolute strength isn't going up. You're putting on muscle, but your top end strength isn't going up. And if it goes, it'll go up a little bit. You know what I mean? If you're doing a lot of volume, muscles get bigger, you might put 5, 10, 20 pounds on your max lifts. But if you're not used to straining like that and putting that much strain on all the connective tissues and everything, then like you said, you're going to get an overuse injury. But the way I see it is if my body can hold it together and just pull like 500 and just be balls to the wall, like shaking, then when you tell me, oh, do 4x10s or whatever, I'm like, wow, that's easy. I'm more prepared to handle that load because my bones, my connective tissue, my joints, fascia, all that stuff gets prepped for 500. So then the lighter stuff becomes easy. I was in that TV show, and I'm not a runner at all. I'm fast, but I hate running. That's what I mean. Like I can run. I just really dislike it. I would rather hit pads or do some sort of high intensity interval training. My absolute strength enabled me to beat the ultra marathon runners and all these people that run when it came to competition.
When you're retired, huh?
Because once you hit them with fatigue, or once you gave them anything that required strength before they had to run, they were done. They didn't have the capacity to run the way they normally do in that perfect fresh state. Put your shoes on, get your watch, like. They were done. So absolute strength is the most important strength you could have, is the way you interface with reality. Somebody tries to push you down, you don't want them to push you down, you better be absolute strong. I don't care how many push-ups you can do, right? You better be able to throw around some heavy weight, because that's going to prevent you from getting your ass beat.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody that's like, I don't really care about being strong. Like I just want to look good. Do you feel like there's like what influence does that have?
Well, number one, strength is never weakness. It's not always about throwing up weight. Everyone assumes that strength is force production and force output. Like I don't want to pull 315. That's great, but let's just say you tripped and you fell, right? It's also force absorption. So the stronger you are, the less likely it is for you to get hurt doing dumb shit, slipping on ice or something. You fall back, you land on your wrist. Well, I'll tell you what, if you can bench a lot and you have super strong wrists, the likelihood of you breaking your wrist or hurting some small tissue when you're that strong, you're just more prepared for life. And another thing too, the old school way of bodybuilding, those guys trained really heavy and they were really strong. The new style is kind of like, let me evade that. And some guys like Larry Wheels does bulky power lifts and he bodybuilds, but the best looking bodybuilders, if you go back in time, were also the strongest because their muscle was real. It was there for a reason. These guys were deadlifting super heavy. They were squatting. They were doing all the power lifts extremely heavy and extremely high intense. Nowadays, it's kind of different. Everyone's just like,
More high volume, huh?
Yeah, and it's like higher volume, and it's more like an artist. Like they're like, oh, I just want to cap my shoulders. I'm just going to really focus on shoulders. And they like kind of just neglect the compound lifts, and they have like a for show body,
Yeah,
and there's a stimulus. Sorry to interrupt, but there's a stimulus of muscle growth as well for extreme heavyweight. Like a max effort rep will 100% put on size overall.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, like, this is the last thing I'll leave you guys on. I always think of the car accident like theory, and to me, that's like if you got hit by a car, right, and you were going 40 miles an hour, like you're in a car. Okay, let's say you're in a car and you get in a car accident, but it T-bones you and your car flips and it rolls a couple times. How jacked up is your body going to be? If you're really strong, like say you're an MMA fighter and you're getting beat up and you're getting thrown down and your body's used to it, yeah, you're going to have whiplash in your neck. You ain't going to feel good, but you probably walk away pretty like okay. If you're just run and you're just a runner, you're going to break your bones and you're going to be jacked up. And maybe you don't care, but I'm telling you, and I know from doing martial arts and football, day one of the practice, day one of the season, you get somebody takes you down on the mat, it like hurts. It doesn't feel good. It hurts your shoulder. By the end of the season, you're getting slammed and you literally just bounce back up. It's like nothing. Now, you might say, well, that's not max lifting. That's not strength. It's your body adapting to a stimulus. And when you're deadlifting 400 pounds or you're holding 500 pounds on your back, your central nervous system, your motor unit recruitment, which are little motor units, they're what?
Yeah, it's the way like you send the signal to the muscle.
Yeah, to contract basically. And those are like contract. Like if you've ever done, like today I did 4 sets of 10 of like deadlift, like every muscle in your body, 80-90% of your muscles like fully contracted. You might not care about functionality like I do, Mike does. But the thing is, I don't want muscle. Like if I'm going to work to get muscle, wouldn't you want to gain it and have it also be functional? Because I'm telling you right now that for me, as I'm getting older, the things I want to care about is like being able to, I like hiking and mountain biking and doing all those things. And not, if you were a bodybuilder, you could probably do those things too. The problem is I do see a lot of those people start to deteriorate pretty fast in their late 30s, like downhill fast. They start getting back injuries, knee injuries, shoulder injuries, because they just did the same lifts and the same bodybuilding stuff for 10, 15, 20 years. And then they get really out of shape from 40 to 50, or even worse from 50 to 60. Like they do, because they're like,
should have seen me when I was younger.
Yeah, should have seen me when I was younger. I'm injured. And you might be older listening, like, oh, it's easy for you to say when you're 30.
Wait till you're my age. No, you trained like an idiot. Or you stopped.
And look, and I train people, like my dad's almost going to be 60, okay? And I see he has zero mobility, zero flexibility, zero whatever, and he's kind of going downhill fast as far as his injuries. He always has something wrong. And I also train, people that are in their 50s and 60s that are very strong and very mobile and don't struggle with that and don't have bellies and don't blame it on their lower metabolism or their low testosterone. They don't care. They're just like, oh, I prioritize all these different things. So if you want to look good, my opinion, I'll give you 3 things. Number 1, you need to prioritize strength training, because strength training actually releases more testosterone, growth hormone, things that are going to help you burn fat and build muscle. Okay, that's number 1. Just if you want to look good naked, you got to strength train. It doesn't have to be 1 rep maxes, but like, don't be afraid to hit a 1 rep max, even if it's not a full range. 3 rep max, 5, yeah, something like that. 3 to 5, like make it suck. It's heavy. Number 2, you need to have variety. Like, please don't neglect the mobility. It doesn't mean you need to do FRC and like like a whole hour yoga class, but like incorporating it into your program. That's what both, Mike and I do, because I find it very boring to just stretch and do mobility for an hour. Although I'll do it if you put a gun to my head. And, the last thing would be, even if you say, well, I don't care, like I don't care about functioning well. I just think that if you can function better, you're going to look better. Mm-hmm. Like if you could lift, if I said right before that I could only squat 250 or whatever for 4 sets of 10, do you think if I was strong enough to squat 300 for 4 sets of 10, that it would tear my muscles down more? Yep. Yes. And do you think they would recover more? Yes. And do you think that because they recovered more, they grew bigger and I had better looking legs? Yes. And do you think the extra muscle on my legs is now going to help me burn more fat because it raises my metabolism? Yes. So don't tell me that strength doesn't help you look better. It absolutely does. And it has a correlation to it. So, if you guys are totally lost on how to do this too, I know we talked about a lot of science and how the body works. Hit us up. Go to our website, go to pursuithp.com and hit us up. Have a chat with a coach. Tell us what you're doing and let us help you with a program that's going to fit with your schedule. That's my plug right there. If you're completely lost and you've been doing the same stuff for 10 or 20 years or however long, you need to change it up. And don't wait until you're injured, because then it sucks. Then it's hard to do the program. Like, if you're moving and you're like, oh, my shoulder or my back, and I kind of go to the gym, but I haven't really made like any substantial progress. That's when I'd get a coach, because you still have the motivation. You're still going to the gym. You're still doing, you know what I mean? You're in a good spot actually to get a coach. Some people think they need a coach when they're like, I'm unmotivated, 50 pounds overweight. No. The best people, the people that we've seen actually do the best on our programs are the people that are already going to the gym. They're already like kind of like the gym. They're already kind of trying to eat healthy. And then we just like tweak things and like guide them and they crush it. Because I don't have to motivate them to go to the gym. I don't have to motivate them to like want a better physique. They've already been trying. They're just doing the wrong thing.
I love taking people who are already strong or have a great athletic base and turning them into superhumans. That is my favorite type of client. Even someone who's like a powerlifter, like, hey, I've been stuck at these numbers. Like, I got you. And it's just pretty much like walking from point A to point B. It's just a straight line. You follow the program, you're going to get results.
Yeah. We have this client, Jacqueline, that he trains in Arizona. That's super strong. Kind of was doing some dabbling in some powerlifting, and same thing. He's like, her numbers went up super strong, and she like, if you look at her, you're like, oh, she doesn't need a coach. She's already strong and she's already, doing all these things. But the highest level athletes all have coaches. It's smart, right? The most rich people all have business coaches.
I have a coach for powerlifting.
Yeah. Business coaches, life coaches. So it's just taking time and shrinking it, guys. Like get your results sooner. Don't do it the way that it's a pain in the ass. So I appreciate it. I know this episode was a little bit longer, but if you're still with us, we love you and we'll talk to you next time.
Peace.